Oh, a brand new LinusTechTips video. Mystic Space Warrior PC. No. 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 Yes? Oh my god. Hey, what's up guys, Snows here, and today we've got a little bit of a different video. About a week and a half ago on Floatplane Club, I saw the video called Mystic Space Warrior PC from LinusTechTips. After watching the video, I've got to say that I was disappointed. There were some cool elements like the laser etching and the 3D printed bracket for the GPU, but I've got to say that the whole construction is kind of disappointing. The wooden frame was unpolished, the paint job was just horrendous, and the end result just wasn't feeling premium nice. It wasn't feeling like something custom. It just felt like some wood and plastic thrown together and PC parts inside of it. So I decided to make my own PC case, and I'm regretting this every single day. This is still an ongoing project, and this is part 1. So far, I've been able to create the whole frame for the PC to go into, and I want to show you how I did it. Let's start with the footprint. I had to decide how wide and how long I wanted my case to be. Now, since I don't have an endless supply of motherboard to choose from, I had to go with the ATX form factor, which is an X370 board that I already have. Now, most full ATX boards are 12 inches by 9 3/4 of an inch. So I decided to go with about 31.5 centimeters on each side. That's about 12 inches and a quarter. So that's gonna give me a square. In that square, I'm gonna be able to put the motherboard about here. And now I know about how big the footprint of the motherboard will be. And then I thought, perfect. How tall do I want the case to be now? Well, the way that I want to put my components in kind of dictates how tall it has to be. So the height of the case is going to be determined by 3 factors: the power supply, the motherboard, and the AIO cooler that I want to use. The way I decided to do this is like this: power supply at the bottom, motherboard on top, and the AIO cooler spitting out air right above that. I did all of my calculation, and luckily enough, to fit all of this, it's the same thing as the footprint of the motherboard, which means about 12.25 inch. Now, I haven't made any precise measurements, so honestly, I'm not sure if this is gonna work, but so far, this is what I've got. Once I've ballparked all of the dimensions, it pretty much just leaves me with a cube. But the question is, what materials am I gonna use? Am I gonna use wood? Wood. I decided to go against wood because I don't have the tools or the knowledge to make it look super crisp and super nice. So with wood out of the way, I decided to go with aluminum. It's malleable, it's cheap, and it's pretty sturdy. Specifically, I decided to go with angled aluminum. This type of angled aluminum you can get in 4, 6, 8 feet if you want to, and it's about 3/4 of an inch on each side, and it's 1/16 of an inch thick. The next step is to figure out how I'm gonna make a cube with the aluminum. It's fairly easy. All you have to do is to mark out the aluminum, add the intervals that you need, make sure you get a piece long enough to be able to make the square with the dimensions that you want. Once you've marked all of the place that you want to cut, you can grab a right angle and mark out your angles. You want 2 cuts at 45 degrees on each side. To make the cuts, I decided to use a Dremel, and honestly, I would have probably preferred using a hacksaw for the whole project, because the Dremels tend to slide over a little bit, and when you make your cut, creates aluminum dust. You want to make sure that you have a mask. The disc broke often, and honestly, I'm so glad I bought that hacksaw because it made life for me so much easier to cut aluminum and make sure that it was straight when it was cut. Once I've marked and cut all of my cuts, what I did was find something flat and long, place it against the area that I have just cut, and went ahead and just folded the aluminum straight over it. Aluminum is super malleable, but you want to make sure that you have equal pressure on both sides when you're bending the area that you want to bend to a 90 degree. I personally would even recommend, if you can, to get a slightly bigger angle than 90 degree to make the cuts. Reason why is, yes, you can bend the aluminum, but it tends to retain a little bit of its flatness, so it's going to spring back a little bit. If you're able to bend it a little bit further, then you're able to get a 90-degree angle easily. Once you've done that twice, once for the top and once for the bottom, you need to cut your pieces that are going to be the pillars that are going to support those 2 squares to make the cube. Once you've marked and cut them, you can go ahead and use these pieces to bridge the gaps on your 2 squares up top. because these two square up top need to be closed on both ends. Once the pillars are made, you can go ahead and bridge the gap. Personally, I used a 5/32 drill bit, drilled a few holes, and used rivets to pop them into place. That way, nothing would move. And that's what I have right here. As you can see, I popped a few rivets, made sure that it was square, and this is what I have. So here's the bottom part with 3 pillars, and here's the top with 1 pillar. The reason why I had to leave 1 pillar for the other is because I still need to bridge the gap right here. So what I decided to do is just leave one of them on the other side of. So this one is able to retain the shape of the square, and that one is able to retain the shape of the square. It's either one of these two. Here's something to keep in mind. When you bend aluminum, it's hard to get a very straight bend, which means you're always gonna have a little bit of a rounded edge right here. So what I did is I basically sanded off the edges about 3/4 of an inch high. That allowed me to get much closer on these edges wherever I was about to rivet. That way it makes everything look much cleaner. Now here's what it looks like once it's all assembled. Isn't it pretty cool? I mean, 12" by 12", all aluminum frame. You could have done that, Linus. This is where things get a little bit tricky. The insides. How am I going to make all of the platforms to populate all of my parts? At first, I decided, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll use MDF. That's pretty cool.
Wrong.
And I got myself a piece of super thick MDF. Honestly, highly regret that choice. MDF is super cheap, but it's really hard to cut without any tear out. And I want my project to look clean. Well, as clean as I can make it. So at first, I did cut the piece and I placed it inside, and it looked nice and it added some weight to the bottom of the case. But honestly, painting MDF might make it swell up, and there's so many things that I don't want to have to deal with if I'm using MDF, like the glue up, making sure that whenever I screw things that it doesn't tear out. So I decided, why not use plexiglass? So I went to my local hardware shop, and goddamn, it was expensive. A piece about 2 foot by 4 foot cost me about 35 to 50 bucks. That made no sense, so I decided to call up my local plastic supplier, just basically like a plastic shop that I found on Google. And they told me that they were selling offcuts, basically cuts that nobody was using, and they were selling it for dirt cheap cash. That's some underground business, you know what I mean? So I bought some for 10 bucks. That's pretty cheap for acrylic, especially when it's 5mm thick. Now the way that I want to put it in, because this is still a work in progress, I have no idea how the end result is going to look like. And this is where I'm at right now. I have the frame, I have a couple of pieces of acrylic, and this is what I want to do. So the way I want this to happen is to have one piece at the bottom to hold the power supply and the drives. I'm gonna cut a piece of angled aluminum to go this way, right up top of the power supply. And I'm gonna have a smaller piece of acrylic that's the size of a motherboard to go right above right here. Maybe that way I'm able to create a basement for the power supply, cover it up, have the motherboard over it, and everything is going to look super sleek, super transparent. Now, one thing that I was kind of hoping to do is to put an LED sort of backlight behind these panels so that it shines through all of the edges. I still don't have all of the dimensions right, which means that I should be able to snip or sand the sides a little to make sure that it fits in just right here. And then I'll have the AIO showing up right here. This video is kind of just an update on what I've been working on, what I've been doing. The build that I'm gonna have inside of here is going to be a Ryzen 5 1600 with a 290X inside of it. Now things are gonna get pretty toasty, so I'm gonna have to find a way to get that airflow going as much as possible. To make the cuts for the fans, I actually bought on Amazon a pack of hole saws for dirt cheap. These were 15 bucks, and I'm able to basically cut holes for the fans that way. I'm not even sure how good these are gonna be, but I mean, it's worth a try. The cooler is going to be an ML240 from Cooler Master, which I'm gonna make a review of course, and a Cooler Master Master Watt 650 watt power supply that I bought on Newegg on sale. Now I have to admit that this has been an ongoing learning process. Some things that I've never done before, alright, well actually everything in there I've never done before. I've never cut acrylic, I've never bent aluminum, I've never cut into aluminum, I've never used rivets, and I've never had to take measurements to build anything. So if this turns out to be great, Linus Tech Tips, please redo your Mystic Warrior PC and do it well this time. that's pretty much it for the update on what I've been doing for the past few weeks. Hopefully you've enjoyed. YouTube has cut out my monetization completely. Kind of makes sense. They did tell me about a month ago they were about to do that. I didn't want to live stream because I haven't made any videos, so I kind of felt bad, but don't worry. This video is coming out. I'm probably going to live stream either the day before or the day after. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Stay frosty, and I'll see you on the next one. Oh, by the way, you can click right here to subscribe and right here to watch my latest video where I rap about a case, or maybe it's going to be something else. I don't know yet. I haven't edited the video. Man, cutting acrylic is the loudest thing I've done ever. Like it pops and it rings the ears. It's crazy.